the planet now is bringing in so much energy that it's activating these two centers. So I would say the majority of humans, whether they know it or not, they're around here. Most, those of us that are in this wave are really, and what they were talking to me last year about is that we were going through another, a third ascension wave, and so we're in this area. Where I'm starting to see the toroid fields is actually beings that are starting to activate the 8th and 9th. So what seems to happen is we go through a merging where we get to the 7th level, we finally make it through this magnetic repulsion zone. Again, remember between these are the hairier initiations. They're a lot more goes on in there. So when we make it to the 7th level, what happens is all the chakras now unify. The membranes collapse in between layers, and the fields start to come into one light source through the entire column. And then what I started to notice is that the 8th chakra, which is here, it's the thymus level, there starts to be a little seed that blossoms here, and then the 9 chakras in the base of the skull. And so this is just in terms of my experience, I'm just sharing that this is what I'm starting to see. So the beings that are activating the 8th and 9th layers are now starting to move into toroid forms. I'm starting to see they've unified the layers enough here. This starts activating, and it's a weird movement. It looks like a gyroscope. It starts moving around the head, and then all of a sudden you start seeing this toroid thing. So it'll be interesting to see what happens as we get higher up the scale, but that's at least what I'm viewing now in my timeline and in my practice. So
do you see a lot of those people? Have you seen a lot of those people that are between?
I would say it's more like, maybe 10 people out of, it's still minority, but it was definitely presented for my learning, because it was like, okay, pay attention to this because this is new.
And you had talked about having passed the frequency fence for yourself. So then your 7 have collapsed, and you're already functioning in 8 and 9 on your own. Is that where you are?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
So I lost my question. I had it a second ago and it just disappeared. Oh well, it'll come back.
That's good.
Lisa,
That's good.
how do you know where you're functioning?
Where you, well, I think, I don't know if you ask your guides, I'm a proponent. I think it's better to try to find it within than asking someone else. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just, this is somewhere where the ego can get caught up, because on one level it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? There's so many, this is another level of information, but I'm also very clear that we don't want the ego to get stuck in the story here. You know what I mean? Take the information, feel what's right for you, but don't get, obsessive or adamant that this is how it's got to be. Nothing has to be anyway, except what's good for you. But this, again, it's just a framework, it's a model to help us understand what the heck is going on here. So we can understand our bodies and our interrelationship, to everything else.
I remember my question.
You remember?
Yeah, the people who are functioning between 8 and 9, are they in leadership positions and pursuing this work?
This is a great question. This is a great question, and this is probably this is the next class when we talk more direct about initiation, because this is, again, each center has attributes. And sort of like in my own experience, as I was going through a conscious initiation process. Now, most of us don't have that, but that was because obviously my role here, I needed to understand. So when I had my 5th initiation in May 13th of 2001, I went through it. I met the Lord of Sirius for the first time. And I didn't know my Sirian connection at that time. So that was in 2001, and I met the Lord of Sirius. And I went through this whole initiation, and they told me, this is your first cosmic initiation. I had no idea what that meant at the time, but that was something that was very profound for me. And they explained that most of us, when we go through this, it's in sleep state. It's in sleep state program. We're doing this on the inner planes, so we're not fully consciously aware of this. And that's another, I think, function of our multidimensionality, is that as we embody more of this, we're going to have more of this conscious interaction of what we are doing when we're asleep, you know what I mean? Because there's a whole aspect of us running across the universe, doing all kinds of things.
So not conscious. So
yeah.
While we're asleep. Not
well,
conscious.
like right now, most of us don't remember where we are when we're sleeping.
Right.
But yet most of us are doing ascension work. We have our own classrooms. Like, I'm aware of having a classroom somewhere. I don't even know where it is. But, you know, I have people say, I saw you last night. You know, I'm like, you know, this is showing up more. Where people are having dreams and I'm teaching them in class, you know, and I'm aware of teaching it somewhere else when I'm sleeping. You know, so we have, it's amazing. You know, we are doing a lot. Well, you think you're sleeping, but you're not. You know, you're off saving the universe somewhere. So, I mean.
So those other 8 and 9ers, you sort of say they're in.
Yes,
what kind of
pardon, I got on a
position in
tangent.
their
Okay,
life?
so what happens, bye Natalie, thank you, sweetie.
I'm so sorry.
So, no problem. Is that, okay, so when you come into, remember, okay, your personality level, you're starting to merge your soul. Okay, so what's happening is your soul body is starting to burn into you. You know, you're starting to descend these energies into your physicality, because that's the whole ascension, is the biological ascension, bringing it into your cellular consciousness. So at this level, they started to tell me, okay, you're a kindergarten ascended master now, and I'm thinking, you know, who knows what that means, but, you know, what they were describing to me is that you work through your own liberation, because once you get through this, your field is now liberated from the rebirth wheel of having to come back into this realm, because it's just a vibrational thing. So basically, during this period of time, all I was doing night and day pretty much is ascension treatments, calling in light, calling in masters, bringing in Metatrons, the light of 1,000 suns. You know, I mean, I was like on and on, asking the Arcturians to plug me in, take me up the starship, put me on the ascension seats. I mean, I was all over the place, and this was like for 2 years straight. I was like in the morning, and I could just hear it going in my head, even when I was like doing taxes somehow. Don't even tell me. I think my guys did the taxes. I just sat there. Kundalini flying off, and people would peer into my room and go, ah! I had to be scaring those people, I gotta tell you. Because when I was just flaming Kundalini, and I did not know how to channel it. My hair fell off, and they probably thought, my God, this poor girl. So it was quite a scene. But anyway, during that period of time, they told me, you are working towards these levels. Once you become to this level, are you willing to take it into world service? I mean, they asked me that question. When you reach the 6th level, they go, okay, what do you think? You gonna do it? You know, and at that time, you're still, I have to say at that time, I was in the love and light syndrome, and I was just like, of course, absolutely, whatever. You know, and I'm still that way, but you become definitely more aware that it's a challenge. It's not, you know, it's not necessarily easy being the first level of bringing this kind of information, you know, out into the world. And I recognize that being an empath, being a sensitive person, oversensitive to the point where emotions would overwhelm me, I had to get my butt kicked in order to understand what it would take to do this. You know, so I went through some really heavy duty warrior lessons, because the Lisa personality was still too emotionally wrapped into the pain of the experience, because I could feel everything, and I didn't understand where I ended. My boundaries weren't developed yet, and I still was having confusion about what it is to be a woman in her power, who's spiritual, you know, all of that stuff, because this is, of course, you know, we're talking about the genderless issue of just being a soul in a body, but in this reality, we've also got the whole gender thing, which we have to figure out in restructuring female power in society. We don't have a lot of models for that. So it's a learn as you go thing. So what happens is when you go through your initiations, you know, you're building your body, you're building your light field, you're building the integrity of your being, you're getting in contact, developing your higher sensory perception so that you can really feel the knowingness in you with your connections. And then when you get to this level, what happens at this level is you start to feel your purpose in the divine plan, because the 7th layer is the last layer of the instruction set for this incarnation. When you start leaving here, you start getting into multidimensional identities, and the 7th layer is the 7th plane of the earth, where the logos is held, where the planetary logi is held. And so what's there is the divine plan for this planet is residing in the 7th plane. So when you start to merge with these energies, you start to feel the divine plan of what's happening on the planet, and then your particular role in it. And so that's how a lot of this information is coming from me, because it's recorded in the cellular matrix and memory of this planet. So you when you're at this level, you start to be able to sense it. It's impulsed. Sometimes, and again, we each get our higher sensory perception different. But for me, sometimes it's direct communication, and a lot of the times it's just stream. It's like I can feel myself plug in to a channel somewhere, and this information just comes in, and then I, as Lisa, will listen to it for the first time. I'm like, oh wow, okay, that's nice. So it's really fascinating. But just so you know that this is, you're now at this level plugging into the planetary mind.
So that's not just a personal experience with you. You find that all the people who get to that point
Yes.
are probably asked that question and have
Yes.
a decision to make.
Yes.
And so by the time they get to functioning between the 8th and 9th level, and they're still on this planet with a human vessel, they are, chances are, doing the same kind of work you're doing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. You get primed because all of a sudden the goal is about the collective and the group. And I will explain in my own experience, I have to admit, I live, breathe, speak, this is my life, and I don't have any regret. I mean, it just is me now. It was like, it's beyond concept, it is an experience now. It becomes your essence now. And you can't you can't deviate from it. There's nothing to deviate from, but it's very interesting because, I do remember how I used to think, and it's different. It's like you're the organic essence of your beingness is just shifted into service. And that's all that there is if you're going to stay here,
Yeah.
So, but it's interesting to note that at each level there's a mind matrix, and this is where you hit the planetary mind. This is the galactic center when you start getting into the 8th layer. The galactic center, and this is another kind of interesting tidbit just while we're here, the universe is a toroid as well. So this isn't actually the literal, accurate depiction of the dimensions. What actually happens is it folds in on itself. So we actually go from here to here to here to here. So it folds in on itself. So we actually enter in the center. So this is called the 8th portal. A lot of us in esoteric literature probably know this, that when we come into form, into this realm, we enter through the 8th portal, and it's through this galactic center that we actually come into like dimensionalized system. So, because we kind of think, oh, we come out from here, whatever, or higher, but actually we come in through the 8th. So the 8th is the galactic center, and the 9th is the universal kundalini. So what I'm noticing too, which is really fascinating, and I know I'm so excited about that multidimensional field. I know I'm getting ahead of myself. This is more about the 3D stuff that I really wanted to bring home. But what's really cool too is that the 9th level is universal kundalini. So what I'm seeing is we are getting disconnected from the planetary life force and connected to the universal life force. So as we become liberated from this planetary realm, because here our energy fields, our meridians, our bodies, we actually get our chi and life force, our prana from the earth. It comes through the planetary energy. Now we're starting to move into the universal. So it's really amazing for me to see this, because we're kind of looking at the reality going, well, it kind of feels the same, it kind of looks the same, but yet I'm seeing something in the energy field. Something's gonna have to shift at this level of reality at some point, because the energy fields are radically shifting and looking different. So it's pretty wild. So it's really interesting, this is about a collaboration. It's not about giving your power to anything outside of yourself. You do have to negotiate, you do have the dialogue, and that's another important thing. If you do come in contact with beings, whether they're archangelic presence or masters or whatever, they don't want your power. They want your interaction, your co-creation. Use your power into service, for yourself. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting dynamic, because I can only explain it as feeling it in space. It's like the Guardian Alliance feels out there, and the Syrians feel right here, and this like different, like closer an octave of communication. It's like the further out it goes, the more challenged it is to get it into this level of communication, because it's all symbols, codes. It's just not a linear way we communicate at all. So, and I'm learning and like all of us, we have to prepare our bodies to hold these higher frequencies. So this information is data and light codes. So I recognized that I had some really severe ascension symptoms to prepare the physical biology, my 3D body, to be able to hold these particular energies, to just translate them, to just have cognition of them, you know, and that's our thing, you know, we're getting so many energies